Far to the north of Africa's Golden Coast, where warm breezes carry the scent of salt and cedarwood, a city once grew upon the shores of the Mediterranean. That city was Carthage. To the Romans, it would become a name spoken with fear and rivalry. To historians, it is remembered for its power, its ships, its trade, and at last, its tragic destruction. But tonight, we are not rushing into battles or the clash of empires. Instead, we walk slowly along its streets, as if at twilight, when the noise of the harbor has settled and the evening lamps flicker against carved stone walls. Carthage began as a colony of Phoenician settlers from the eastern Mediterranean. They were sailors, merchants, and builders. According to legend, the city was founded by Queen Dido, also called Alyssa, a woman who fled from her homeland and built a new beginning on these western shores. Whether legend or truth, her story gives Carthage a touch of timeless romance, as though the city itself was born of both exile and hope. As the years passed, Carthage grew into a place of quiet prosperity. Traders filled the harbors with goods: ivory from Africa, tin from distant lands, fine purple dye from Tyrian shells, and grain that fed ships and families alike. And while Rome would one day call Carthage its greatest enemy, in these early centuries, it was not yet a city of fire and destruction. It was a city of laughter, labor, and life. You can imagine the sounds: the creak of ropes as ships swayed gently in the harbor, the calls of fishermen returning at dusk, and the faint hum of voices drifting through narrow alleys of sandstone houses. The Mediterranean world was alive here. Carthage stood as a city of crossroads, where cultures met, where ideas mingled, and where traditions were both preserved and reshaped. And so, tonight, let us step into its streets, not as tourists of the past, but as wanderers in a dream. We will walk slowly, with unhurried steps, exploring not only the rise of Carthage, but the rhythms of its daily life. Because sometimes, the best way to remember the past is not through battles, but through the simple quiet of how people once lived. As the centuries passed, Carthage grew from a colony into a city of great renown. Its location was everything. To the north stretched the Mediterranean Sea, alive with trade and travel. To the south lay the vast richness of Africa: grain fields, olive groves, and the promise of gold and ivory from deeper inland. Carthage became the bridge between worlds. Its harbors filled with ships bearing sails of purple and white, their hulls heavy with goods. Merchants from Greece, Egypt, and even far-off Spain made their way to Carthage's markets, where the scent of spices mingled with the brine of the sea. But beyond wealth, what did life look like for those who lived within this city? Imagine a morning in Carthage. The sun, rising over the waters, casts long golden beams across the city's walls. Families stir within small, stone-built homes. The streets begin to hum with footsteps, children carrying water jars, artisans setting up their stalls, women grinding grain for bread. The sound of bronze tools striking wood echoes from workshops, while in shaded courtyards, looms clatter as cloth is woven. Carthage was not only a city of trade, but of skill. Craftsmen produced fine pottery, intricate jewelry, and textiles dyed in the deep, rich purple once reserved for kings. In quiet corners of the city, scribes marked down contracts and trade agreements, their reed pens scratching softly against parchment. Religion, too, wove itself into daily life. Temples rose above the city, their altars carrying offerings to gods both Phoenician and local. To the Carthaginians, the divine was never far away, present in the sea, in the harvest, and in the uncertain winds that carried their ships across open water. And yet, for the ordinary people of Carthage, daily life was often simple. Meals were plain but nourishing: bread, olives, figs, and fish drawn fresh from the sea. Families gathered in courtyards, shaded from the hot African sun, sharing food and stories as the evening cooled. The city's harbor was its beating heart. From the great circular naval dock, warships and merchant vessels alike set out to distant lands. Sailors carried tales of strange customs and distant storms, and when they returned, the city's markets swelled with treasures and stories alike. In these moments, Carthage was more than a rival to Rome, more than an empire to be feared. It was a living, breathing home, where the rhythm of work and rest, of prayer and laughter, carried on much as it does for us today. Picture now the city at dusk. Lanterns flicker on the walls, their light dancing softly on sandstone. The sea is calm, and the air smells faintly of salt and smoke from hearths. Somewhere, a child falls asleep to the sound of their mother's quiet song, while outside, the city settles into gentle silence. This was the Carthage that lived and thrived, before its name became forever linked to fire and ruin. As Carthage reached the height of its golden age, its name carried far across the Mediterranean. Merchants spoke of its harbors, its fleets, and its wealth. Sailors knew it as a place where fortunes could be made. But beyond trade and prosperity, something else was growing, the quiet awareness of another power rising far across the sea. That power was Rome. In its earliest years, Rome was but a small city on the Italian peninsula. Carthage, far older and richer, did not consider it a threat. But time has a way of reshaping balance, and slowly, Rome grew stronger, gathering its people, its legions, and its influence. The Mediterranean, which had once seemed endless, became a shared space. Two great powers sailing the same waters, eyeing the same islands, trading with the same ports. At first, their meetings were cautious, even friendly. Treaties were signed, lines drawn, promises made. But as years passed, those lines blurred. The island of Sicily, lying just between Italy and North Africa, became the spark of tension. Both cities wanted it, both saw it as essential, and neither was willing to let go. Thus began what we now call the Punic Wars, a long struggle between Carthage and Rome. But tonight, we will not linger on battlefields. Instead, let us imagine how this rivalry felt to the ordinary Carthaginian. Perhaps a merchant, standing in the marketplace, hears rumors of Roman soldiers gathering in the north. A sailor, returning from Sicily, speaks of Roman ships blocking harbors. Families, in the quiet of their homes, whisper of news carried across the sea. And still, life went on. Even as treaties broke and fleets clashed, the city continued to breathe with the rhythm of daily life. Bakers rose early to prepare bread, children laughed in courtyards, and the sea winds carried the familiar scent of salt and cedar. Yet beneath that calm, a shadow stretched longer with each passing year. Carthage and Rome were two mirrors of ambition, each unwilling to see the other dominate. And so, quietly, steadily, history moved them closer toward conflict that neither could avoid. For Carthage, these years were uncertain. Its ships remained strong, its harbor busy, and its markets alive. But the people must have felt the unease, the sense that their city was no longer simply a place of trade, but the center of a great rivalry that could not end peacefully. Imagine the city at night during these uneasy times. From the harbor, the sea glimmers in moonlight, calm and endless. Within the walls, the lanterns still burn, families still share their meals, and prayers rise softly from temple steps. And yet, somewhere in the distance, the thought of Rome lingers, like a faint storm cloud on the horizon. It would not arrive tomorrow, nor perhaps the next year. But in the slow turning of time, Carthage was already on a path toward its greatest trial. The rivalry between Carthage and Rome did not fade. It grew, slowly, steadily, until the calm waters of the Mediterranean seemed too small for them both. The struggle came to be known as the Punic Wars. 3 long conflicts stretched across more than a century. For most, these wars are remembered through the name of one man, Hannibal. Hannibal Barca was a Carthaginian general, trained from youth to defend his city against Rome. His story has become legendary, especially his bold journey across the Alps, leading elephants through snow and mountains to surprise the Roman Republic from the north. But while history often tells this tale with fire and glory, let us picture it more quietly. Imagine the slow footsteps of men and animals winding through frozen passes. The sound of crunching snow beneath hooves, the creak of leather straps, the steady breath of soldiers as they pressed forward through icy winds. For the people of Carthage, news of Hannibal's victories must have arrived like whispers carried across the sea. Families in the marketplace might have heard of Roman legions defeated, of Hannibal standing at the very gates of Rome. There must have been hope, even pride, that their city, small upon the coast of Africa, could shake the power of Rome itself. And yet, as years passed, that hope dimmed. Hannibal, though brilliant, could not bring final victory. Rome endured, and Rome learned. Slowly, Carthage began to lose ground. Its fleets were broken, its allies wavered, and its once powerful trade grew thin beneath the weight of war. For ordinary Carthaginians, this decline was not a sudden collapse, but a gradual fading. Perhaps it was felt in the markets, where goods became fewer and prices higher. Perhaps it was seen in the harbor, where fewer ships returned and the air grew still. Perhaps it was heard in the tone of voices, no longer confident, but careful and subdued. Yet still, life continued. Families still lit lamps at dusk. Farmers still tended their fields just beyond the city walls. Children still played, their laughter echoing against stone streets. Even as shadows lengthened, Carthage remained alive. In time, though, Rome's patience ended. After long years of conflict, the Roman Republic determined that Carthage would rise no more. And so, in the Third Punic War, they came not only to defeat, but to erase. The city that had once thrived with trade, laughter, and song would fall silent. But before we step into those final days, let us pause. For Carthage, in truth, was more than its end. It was a place of people, of daily life, of countless moments that history cannot record. The simple joy of bread shared at dawn, of sails rising against the horizon, of prayers whispered into the evening air. And even as Rome prepared to end Carthage's story, the spirit of the city lingered, quiet but unbroken, in the memory of those who once called it home. The end of Carthage came slowly, like the dimming of a lamp. By the year 149 BCE, Rome had grown weary of rivalry. To them, Carthage could never again be allowed to rise. And so, Roman legions crossed the sea, surrounding the city that had once stood as their equal. The siege lasted for years. Inside the walls, Carthaginians endured hunger, loss, and long nights of waiting. But still, they resisted, unwilling to surrender the home that had given them life for centuries. And then, in 146 BCE, the end arrived. The Romans broke through the defenses. Carthage, proud and ancient, was set to flame. The smoke drifted into the Mediterranean sky, and the sound of the city faded into silence. Legends tell us that the Romans salted the earth, that nothing might grow where Carthage once stood. Whether truth or symbol, the meaning is clear. Rome sought not only to defeat Carthage, but to erase it. And yet, Carthage was never truly gone. The city was rebuilt, centuries later, under Roman rule. Its stones reshaped, its harbors used once again, its name spoken in a new language. Even in ruins, Carthage remained. The memory of its walls, its harbors, its people carried forward. Tonight, as we reflect upon this lost city, let us not remember it only for war or fire. Instead, let us think of its daily rhythms, the hum of its markets, the creak of ships in its harbors, the voices that once filled its streets at dawn and dusk. Carthage reminds us that even the mightiest places are, at heart, homes of ordinary lives. Children who laughed and learned, families who shared bread in courtyards, sailors who looked at the horizon and wondered what lay beyond. Though its walls have crumbled, Carthage lives on in memory, in history, and in the quiet stories told at night. And as you drift to rest, imagine yourself standing upon those ancient shores. The sea before you, calm and endless. The city behind you, alive once more with voices, lights, and laughter. Carthage, the city by the sea, no longer lost, but remembered. The story of Carthage does not end in flames, nor in ruins. For history has a way of holding on to places, carrying them forward in memory, in story, in quiet echoes across time. Long after its fall, poets wrote of Carthage. Roman historians remembered it with both pride and fear. Medieval travelers whispered of its ruins, standing silent upon the North African coast. And today, beneath the modern city of Tunis, stones of Carthage still rest, warmed by the same Mediterranean sun that once shone upon its golden age. It is a reminder that no city is ever truly lost. Even when walls crumble, even when streets fall silent, the memory of those who lived there lingers, woven into the fabric of our shared past. As you listen tonight, think of Carthage not as a place of destruction, but as a place of life, a city of laughter in the marketplaces, of sails rising on the horizon, of prayers whispered softly at twilight. A city of ordinary people who lived, who loved, who dreamed, just as we do now. Perhaps there is comfort in knowing that even across thousands of years, their stories touch ours. That the same sun we see each morning once lit their harbor. That the same moon we see tonight once rose above their rooftops. And that the same human hopes, the longing for peace, the rhythm of family, the quiet joy of daily life, were theirs as well. So, as you rest now, let Carthage fade gently into memory. The sea is calm, the lamps are dim, and the city sleeps once more. Good night, and may history's echoes carry you softly into dreams.